All right, let's dive right into the intense and deeply emotional opening of Michael Morpurgo's Private Peaceful. In this explainer, we're going to map out the defining moments of a young boy's life, moving chronologically through his earliest, most vivid memories to understand exactly what makes him tick.
We actually start things off in media res, right in the thick of it, with our narrator, Tomo, on a midnight vigil. He's desperately trying to stay awake, absolutely determined to remember nearly 18 years of his life. Why? Well, because tonight, more than any other night, he wants to feel truly alive. He refuses to sleep or dream the time away, because every single moment is just way too precious. It immediately pulls you in, doesn't it? It makes you ask, what on earth is he waiting for?
To really understand the stakes of this chapter and the crushing weight of Tomo's memories, let's treat this explainer like the dramatic cold open of a prestige TV show. Imagine the screen fading to black and the words, "Previously on," flash before your eyes. We're essentially rewinding the clock to see the exact inciting incidents that shaped Tomo Peaceful into the young man sitting all alone in the dark.
And that rewind introduces us to a cast of sharply contrasting characters who completely define his childhood. First, you have Charlie, his protector and older brother, who just seemingly knows everything. Then, contrast him with Big Joe, a pure, happy spirit who sits up in the trees singing Oranges and Lemons. Then there's Molly, the kind girl with chestnut brown hair. And of course, looming over all of them is the absolutely terrifying schoolmaster, Mr. Munnings.
The very first major memory Tomo pulls us into is a dreadful morning, the terrifying first day of school. Now, the fascinating thing here is that Tomo doesn't view this as some exciting new beginning. Not at all. He feels it in his bones as the end of his beginning. In his mind, once he walks down that hill, his carefree days are officially over.
Notice how the physical discomfort he experiences perfectly mirrors his emotional dread. He's wearing a collar for the very first time, and it literally feels like it's choking him. The boots are strange and heavy, just like his heart. He kind of resents that Big Joe gets to stay safe at home, and ultimately Charlie actually has to give him a piggyback as Tomo cries, clinging tight to his brother's neck.
On that miserable march to school, Tomo spots a dead crow hanging from a fence. This tiny moment reveals a whole lot about Tomo's early sense of justice. He feels absolutely no pity for this bird. Why? Because he remembers watching crows massacre newly hatched baby robins in a nest he'd found earlier. To Tomo, that dead crow simply got exactly what it deserved.
It's really a day of harsh contrasts. Outside in the schoolyard, Mr. Munnings is pure terror, literally pointing right at Tomo, complaining about his trials and tribulations of having yet another peaceful boy in his school. But inside the classroom, the whole vibe shifts. When Miss McAllister notices Tomo's untied boots, she doesn't punish him. She asks her best pupil, Molly, to help out. Molly kneels down, delicately ties a great loopy double knot, and offers him a warm smile.
And honestly, that single smile changes everything. Later on, out in the schoolyard, while Charlie is off splitting conkers with the older boys, Tomo sits on a tree stump all by himself. He actually undoes his bootlaces and practices that same loopy knot over and over again until he gets it. Sure, it's untidy and loose, but it's done. From across the yard, Molly sees his success and smiles at him once more. In that exact moment, Tomo realizes he doesn't want to run home anymore. He's found a friend.
But that sweet childhood innocence, it is shattered in an instant. The narrative shifts so incredibly fast from a joyful memory right into an absolute disaster. It starts out completely blissfully. Tomo is giggling, riding the horse Billy Boy up to Ford's Clevewood, but then the rhythmic grunts of his father chopping wood are interrupted by this sickening creak from high up above. Tomo looks up to see a massive tree falling directly toward him. He's just mesmerized, his legs completely frozen in place. His father screams for him to run, sprints through the trees, and tosses Tomo aside right before the tree crashes down.
The sensory details Morpurgo uses for what happens next are just devastating. When Tomo wakes up from the roaring crash, he crawls over to his father, who is pinned beneath the leafy crown. An arm is outstretched, the glove fallen off, a single finger pointing right at him. There's blood dropping onto the leaves, and even though his father's eyes are open, Tomo knows instantly they aren't seeing anything. This visceral, horrific image is permanently burned into Tomo's mind.
The funeral that follows is a total masterclass in emotional whiplash. You have this deeply spiritual moment where a trapped swallow finally escapes the church, and Big Joe actually laughs, knowing Father Spirit is free to fly. But that beautiful, fleeting moment is immediately crushed by the Colonel's incredibly patronizing speech, a really harsh reminder of the family's lower social standing as he brags about the peacefuls working for him for 5 generations. Finally, out at the grave, Tomo just focuses on a blackbird singing from a yew tree as the earth thuds heavily against the coffin.
Away from all the cold pomp of the church, the family holds their own, deeply intimate burial in the damp earth right under the rosebush. They bury Father's most precious things. Mother puts in his pipe, Charlie lays down his heavy hobnail boots so they look like they're just sleeping. Big Joe covers them up with Father's old scarf. And Tomo? He brings the gloves his father wore that fatal morning. He can't even bring himself to let them go at first, but Mother gently helps him place them on top, palms up with the thumbs touching.
As they walk home through those deep lanes filled with honeysuckle, the contrast within the family is just heartbreaking. Big Joe, locked in his own innocent world, plucks foxgloves and fills Mother's hands with flowers. But Tomo is entirely consumed by silence. None of them have any tears left to cry or words left to say, but Tomo is carrying a weight that no one else in that family can even begin to comprehend.
And this brings us to the horrific secret that will define the rest of Tomo's life. He genuinely, truly believes that because he froze in those woods, because he couldn't save himself, he forced his father to die in his place. As his mother smooths his hair, Tomo's internal monologue locks onto one devastating conclusion: I have killed my own father.
Which leaves us with an incredibly dark, powerful cliffhanger. What does this immense, unspoken guilt do to a young boy as he grows up? Will Tomo ever find the courage to reveal this devastating secret to Charlie? Or will the shadow of that falling tree dictate his entire existence? Keep these questions in the back of your mind, because this single psychological burden changes absolutely everything about the Tomo Peaceful we meet in the dark.